Welcome to Lighten Your Load, the podcast for busy professionals, where we explore how a deeper understanding of how life really works can help remove the weight of excessive thinking, allowing you to live with less stress, more clarity, and greater resilience. Hello, I'm Peter Field, and welcome to episode 10 of the podcast, Lighten Your Load. This is part 1 of a 2-part series where we're going to explore the subject of low moods. And probably the very first thing to say is that low moods are perfectly normal. In the same way that weather has its seasons and the ocean has its tides, all human beings have their moods. And so it's very helpful to understand exactly what a low mood is and what it actually means about you and your life. At its most simplest level, you could define a low mood as simply a flurry of low quality thoughts that are negative, not helpful, have less perspective, and they tend to generate a sense of urgency and insecurity. And if not fully understood for what they actually are, low moods can quickly spiral out of control into more prolonged periods of depression. Conversely, people in a high mood have thoughts that are more positive. They're nicer, more helpful and hopeful thoughts, and full of perspective. People generally do great and are naturally wise and resilient when they're not trapped in a low mood. In the same way that water has different qualities depending on what state it's in, for example whether it's in a frozen, liquid or steam state, human beings similarly have different qualities depending on the state of mind that they're in, whether they're in a low mood or a high mood. Now, low moods in and of themselves are not problematic if we see them for what they really are, natural cycles or fluctuations in the quality of our thinking. They're part and parcel of the human experience. In this sense, low moods are impersonal. Everybody experiences them, no exception. And the problem arises when we don't understand this. If you think low moods are personal, and that if you're in a low mood, it must mean that there's something wrong with you or something wrong with your life, then it's only natural that you're going to try to do something to make the situation better. But the problem is that when you're in a low mood, you're in the very worst possible state, or the least resourceful state, to implement any meaningful change, because you have no perspective in that everything looks important and urgent. Your level of IQ goes down, and your quality of your thinking is negative and unhelpful. This is why Einstein said, you can't solve a problem at the same level of thinking that created the problem. You need a higher level of thinking, and this is simply not available to you when you're in a low mood. And this is why it's so important to understand the nature of low moods. When you're in a low mood, your thoughts are telling you, this is important, this is urgent, this demands attention. And yet those thoughts are totally unreliable. They lose perspective. They're not to be trusted. It's a bit like the company grapevine. After a while, you don't react to the company grapevine because you know it's unreliable, it's exaggerated, it doesn't always reflect the truth. You see it as gossip, and as a result, you just ignore it. Well, you want to adopt the same approach when you're in a low mood. The thoughts that are arising in a low mood are similarly unreliable and not to be trusted. Put simply, the very best thing to do when you're in a low mood is not to act, not to react, and not to say anything that you later may regret. Don't ask why you're in a low mood. It's not personal. It's part and parcel of the human experience. Human beings go up and down their moods all day long. When you're in a low mood, the best thing to do is to try to ignore it, wait for it to go, in the same way that you may wait for the weather to change or for the tide to go in or out. Low moods don't require any action, they require understanding. You know that when you're in a low mood, it's perfectly normal for those irrational, demanding, attention-seeking thoughts to arise. And of course, you need that same understanding with other people when they're in low moods. And that's what we're going to be looking at in the next episode in part 2. So thank you for joining me on this episode, and I look forward to talking with you again very soon. Thank you for listening to Lighten Your Load. If you have enjoyed this podcast, please subscribe to the show and feel free to connect with me on Instagram to learn more about how you can remove the weight of excessive thinking off your mind so you can live with less stress